All right, girls, this is page 76, and we're going to start up here. And I found this information on page 289, figure 9, and Miss Natasha actually gave these notes on a slide on a PowerPoint. So when you look at that picture, you see that there are yellow beetles and there are brown beetles. And that's a population of beetles. And a population just means the same type of organism that lives in the same place. So for example, we would all be the population of Abu Dhabi, but my sister who lives in the United States, even though she's a human, she actually doesn't live in the same place as us. So she wouldn't be in our population. So you see the population of beetles and you see a predator, which is the bird, who eats the population of beetles. But it only eats more of a certain kind of beetle, and that's the yellow beetle. So some beetles in their population are yellow and some are brown. The yellow beetles are gonna die, and they die because the predator can see them easily, so the predator eats them. They do not get to reproduce, and if they do not get to reproduce, they can't pass their traits. So then we have brown beetles. Brown beetles actually survive because they blend in with the tree, and it's harder for the predator to see them, and if the predator can't see them, the predator can't eat them. And they actually live long enough to reproduce and pass their traits to their offspring, so most of them. So eventually, this word means over time. So over months, over years, over decades, hundreds of years, the population, so the group of beetles that live in that tree, they're gonna change. The traits in that population are gonna change to be mostly brown. And it's gonna be mostly brown because they're gonna be mostly brown traits for color, because those are the only traits that are gonna be passed down to offspring, because mostly brown beetles are the ones who are having babies. But do notice in that picture on page 289 that all of the yellow beetles don't disappear, it just becomes fewer and fewer. But the yellow won't disappear. This part, Miss Natasha also gave you on the slide, and we were talking about natural selection, and natural means nature or the environment actually chooses the traits that are best and the organisms that get to reproduce or have offspring. So the traits in a population or a population can change naturally from their environment, so where they live. So when there's certain things happening in the environment, it will give certain organisms in the population an advantage, and the population will start to change that way. They'll start to adapt to be able to live better in their environment. But then there's another thing called selective breeding, and Miss Natasha actually likes artificial selection. That's a better word for this because it makes it easier for you to tell the difference. Artificial means fake, and the example that I gave is, this is my real nail right here, but if Miss Natasha was going to a wedding, I would get fake nails. I would get artificial nails. They're not real. It's a fake way of choosing traits. And humans are the ones who actually get to choose the traits that they want. And we choose the traits that we want depending on, like, for example, we drink milk, and we want the cows that make the most milk. So we choose the cows who make the most milk, and those are the cows that we actually let have babies, so we can make a population of cows that actually give us a lot of milk, because we use milk for a lot of things. Another thing that I talked about was a cat that doesn't have fur, because some people, the fur on cats makes them sneeze, it makes them itch, and it makes them cough, but they still want to have a cat. So humans used artificial selection to choose the cats that had less and less fur, and over time we were able to create a cat that doesn't have fur, that doesn't cough, it has a little bit of fur or no fur at all, and that causes the cats not to make people sneeze and cough and itch. And another way that we do it is with vegetables. Miss Natasha showed you a slide of certain kinds of vegetables that don't exist in the wild. You wouldn't be able to find broccoli and cauliflower and kale and cabbage and kohlrabi. You wouldn't be able to find those out in nature because humans used fake selection to make them, but you would be able to find wild mustard because that was the seed, that was the plant that humans actually used, and we chose different traits that we want to create all those other different vegetables. And then this was the most important question. This wasn't in the book. You had to think about it. And the answer to this part was they want you to express the major difference between the two processes above. So natural selection and artificial selection. In natural selection, nature chooses the traits, but in artificial selection, humans choose the traits. So make sure you know the difference between these two processes. And the difference is that humans choose the traits here, and nature chooses the traits here. And these are different ways that populations can change.